In this part 6 already of the .NET MAUI crash course, we're going to see how to leverage platform functionality like the location services, the GPS sensors, all those kinds of things. For the people just coming into this video, this is part of a course. I would highly recommend that you watch the full course front to back, so make sure to review the playlist that's popping up on your screen right now. So let's talk a little bit about the device features, right? So all the devices mostly roughly have the same functionalities and the same sensors, like a GPS sensor to determine your location, a camera, also a unified API to open like the default Maps application, maybe share some content, share an image to another application, that kind of stuff. That was all combined into a package that was called Essentials back in Xamarin Essentials and also in .NET MAUI Essentials early on. But we decided, like, somewhere along the way that not everyone might know about the whole history, why it's called Essentials and why it's bundled into one package. Because now new people looking at .NET MAUI, like maybe you, just need to use those APIs, and it would make much more sense to not be in Microsoft.maui.essentials, but in Microsoft.maui.devices.sensors or something, right? In that namespace. So that's why we divided like all the APIs that were formerly known as Essentials into the separate namespaces, so that now it's just another API that will allow you to get the location, or that will get you a image that you are picking from the gallery or taking through the camera. Now, actually, maybe enough with the talking already. In our monkey finder, what we're going to implement is the actual location services that I've been mentioning a couple of times now, because all the monkeys had a location attached, which is, of course, well, I don't know where the locations come from. James Montemagno set that up. Maybe it's based on some kind of truth, but mostly it's just arbitrary GPS locations all around the world, and we're going to use the location services on our device to determine which monkey is the closest to us. And whenever we actually found a monkey, we can just click a button and it will open the default maps on the platform that we're running on and show us the monkey location so that we can navigate towards it if that's what we want. Let's go over to Visual Studio and let's see how to do all this. For this video, we will be working with the part 4 platform features folder right here that should be cloned from the repository onto your local disk. Whenever you open that, just open the solution and you will end up in Visual Studio like I did. Now I actually ran the application already, and the application, this is like where we ended on the previous part. We've implemented this get monkeys. We did that in an earlier video. Then whenever you click here, you will see the detail screen of this monkey with the navigation to shell, all that kind of stuff. That is what we saw in the previous video. Now, what we want to add is here, we see a nice little space here down at the bottom where there might fit another button, and that button is going to show us the closest monkey to us, because all of these monkeys, it isn't shown in the UI, have the coordinates, the GPS coordinates, and with the platform features, so on the device, we can actually use the location services, get our own GPS location, or however it's going to determine our location, and it can see like where we are in the world and what the closest monkey is to us. So we're going to implement that. Now, to do that, first let me stop running this application right here. To do that, we're going to do it on the list page or on the main page, as you already guessed and know from the previous video. So let's go over to our views. Well, actually our view model. I'm going to implement it in a view model first, and we're going to go to our monkeys view model. And here at the top, basically, I'm going to say iGeolocation. And that is the APIs that Essentials, so like I mentioned previously, Essentials provides us to use the geolocation services on the device and actually determine our own location. So let's name this geolocation as well. And we're going to do this, of course, through dependency injection. So here in my constructor, I'm going to also add the, it already predicts what I want to do here. So iGeolocation, and it's going to assign that to this geolocation. So I only need to do tab, I think, and boom. I didn't even need to do the typing. This is some Visual Studio magic going on here. Okay, great. So that is implemented now. And actually, let's go over to our MAUI program now first. So to the Solution Explorer and our MAUI program. And what I'm going to do now is register those services, right? So we already have the monkey service here. let's actually add that. Well, I'm going to add two. First, I'm going to do the iGeolocation. And you can see I'm now registering a interface, right? And an interface isn't something that can be instantiated by itself. So we're going to have to specify somehow which instance we are going to add here. Now, for the other ones, it's easy because the monkey service is just a concrete type, right? It can just go there. It can just do, like at runtime, new monkey service, and it will end up with a new monkey service. But for the iGeolocation, you can't do that. Now, this definitely has its use. Like if you don't have any use to create an interface for it, if you don't want to swap out the monkey service, totally fine. You can use it with concrete types, and you can still get all the benefits of the dependency injection. If you do want to swap out like the iGeolocation, maybe you want to use a mock location whenever you're testing this. Then you can specify your own implementation. Now you can do that by specifying here a geolocation, so comma geolocation. Now it will say like, hey, whenever you are going to request this iGeolocation, you could also use this geolocation and instantiate that basically. But you know, this is a static type, so it's not going to work in this case. But you can, if I make this actually monkey service, oh, it's also not going to work because it doesn't implement iGeolocation, right? But you get the idea. But you know, this only works if you have like a default constructor without any parameters. If you have a constructor with parameters, then you can also provide your actual concrete implementation yourself. And that's what we're going to do in this case. So we have the geolocation and we have .default because it's a static type, right? And this default has like a default implementation for the geolocation. That will just get you the default one that's implemented through Essentials. Now, if you've worked with Xamarin Essentials before, then there are two things new here. All the services have interfaces, so we can use it with dependency injection. And this kind of like changed, we have now geolocation.default. For other APIs, it's, I think for display info, for instance, it's display info.current because it's kind of like the current display. But we don't really have different geolocation providers, right? So that's kind of the difference between default and current here. So yeah, we just registered this with the default one. But if you want to make your own mock one, just create a class that implements iGeolocation, return maybe hard-coded coordinates, and it will work all the same, but you can now run tests over it. And while I'm here, I'm also going to do the same for imap, which is also a API from originally Essentials. And here I'm going to say map.default as well. We'll see that, we'll get to that in a little bit. Just forget it for now. So now that we've done this, we want to go to our monkeys view model again, and we need to have another I command, right? We have this one, and this I command will source generate through the community toolkit MVVM, will create a command that is actually something, the loosely coupled event that we can use to actually trigger code. So let's create that one. Make sure that you're outside of this method scope here. So just do this, and this is inside of our class scope, else it doesn't work, it doesn't do the source generation. Ask me how I know. So here we're going to do I command, and I'm going to do async. We can just do the private one because it will generate the public one for us. Async task, and I'm going to name this get closest, closest monkey, and there's still a typo in there, closest. All right, there we are. And you can immediately see that two references are coming up, so the source generator is already doing its work, which is kind of awesome. If you go look at the Solution Explorer, if you want to have a hint on what's going on, to the Solution Explorer, and you go here to Dependencies, and I'm working on Android now, but it should have it for all the targets right here. You can see the analyzers, and here, let me make this a little bit bigger, we have this Community Toolkit MVVM source generators. And we have like all the generators that are available. We're working with the I command right now. And if we go here, we can see that it generated for us the get closest monkey. And we can actually inspect what it generated for us. We can't make changes here because it's read-only, it's generated, right? But you can see it's kind of like gibberish because it's hard to read and it just generated things. But you can here see that this is a public async relay command, get closest monkey command. So it generates that for us. That's how you can have a little peek at what's going on the inside. So now that we have that, actually, let me copy a little bit of code here. Actually, it's a lot of code, so you don't have to watch me type here. I'm going to paste the implementation here, And the first thing that we're going to do is see that if we're is busy, so we implemented that in the previous video. If we're currently getting data, monkey data, then we're not going to bother. We shouldn't even get here, so we're just going to return. Or if we don't have any monkeys in our list, so we didn't retrieve the data yet, we're going to return because we cannot get the closest location. Then we're going to into a try block, so we're going to try something. Whenever something maybe weird happens, we can scroll down here, we have the catch, and we do a little debug right line, and we have a little display alert that we can show to the user that something is going on. Now, for your implementation, this might very much be different because, I don't know what you're trying to write, but for our little sample application here, this is going to be enough. Then inside of our try block, we're going to see if there is a cached location. So this is kind of like a shared thing. We're just accessing the geolocation service on our device. It can have a cache location from another application that just requested the location, and we don't need to do anything, right? That will spare us battery, network traffic, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to see, this is a API from Essentials. Get last known location async. That's going to see if there is a location that we already can use. And if that is null, then we're going to go out to the next API and we're going to do get location async. That will do an actual active new request to get the location for our device. And we have to specify some parameters. We can do that with a new location request, and we can set a accuracy and the timeout. So for the accuracy, we set it to medium. This is kind of something that's different depending on your use case. If you're going to use turn-by-turn navigation for this road, follow it for 20 miles, then take the next exit, then you want to use probably a more accurate one. For finding a potential monkey somewhere around the globe, the accuracy is medium. That's perfectly fine. So it's kind of like dependent on how far you want to be this accurate, yes or no. And the more accurate it needs to be, the longer it can take to actually determine your location. So that's kind of the trade-off that you have. And that's also where the timeout is for. We're going to wait at most 30 seconds. So if you're maybe inside of a tunnel, then the location cannot really be determined. It will hit those 30 seconds and it will then throw an exception, and we will go to this catch right here and show to the user like, hey, this timed out, we can determine the location. But we're going to assume the happy path. So we're going to actually find from the monkeys, we have this monkeys collection where we have all our monkeys downloaded from the internet and deserialized through JSON. And we're going to order them by, and you can see this is the location that is from our device, and we're going to do calculate distance. Now, how cool is that? That is a helper that also comes from the geolocation APIs that can calculate the distance between new location, and this is our monkey latitude and longitude, and our own location. So it's going to calculate the distance. And in this case, it's going to be in miles. You can also do this in kilometers or any other measurements. And we're going to order it by, so we're going to get the closest one, and then we're just going to take the first one or the default one, so it can be null as well. So technically we should probably do some null check here as well, but that's a nice exercise for you to do at home. So we're going to get that first monkey, and then we're going to show a display alert, and we're going to say, hey, this is the monkey that is closest to you and it's at this location. There is another important part about permissions. Let me first just make this end-to-end working. I will go to add the button to the view, and then I'll go into the permissions. So let's go over to our Solution Explorer. Oops, make this a little bit less cluttery here. And then I'm going to go to the views and to the main page. And here, if you recall from the earlier video, we have like the whole layout with the collection view where it shows all of our monkeys. We have the gesture recognizer to tap on a monkey. This is all things that we set up. But we also have this button here. So let's add the other button. I'm going to paste that in. And with this button, you can see the positioning is done through this grid, right? So this is a little repeat exercise here. This works for our enclosing grid. So we're inside of a grid right here. And we're going to position this in the grid.row1. So we have two rows. This is going to be in the one, so in the second one, and grid column 1, so that's going to be again 0, 1, and it's going to be in the down right corner where we have the little space. Now here the command, you can see get closest monkey command, that's generated for us, and we're going to do this is enabled through the is not busy binding, which is also generated through the MVVM toolkit that we have installed here, and through the data binding where we enable and disable the things here, right? And we have this style and a margin. Again, the styles we will get to to that in a little bit. So now we have this button in place, and we can press the button and it will find the closest monkey for us. But like I said, life isn't as easy for mobile developers, or also on the desktop this gets a little bit weird because especially location can be a privacy sensitive thing. So that is definitely something that you need permissions for, and for a lot of the Essentials APIs, I just keep calling them that, you will need something with the permissions. You will need to request the right permissions, and this is something that still is very much platform specific. So for Android, for instance, we can do it in a couple of different ways. Again, I'm going to go to the Solution Explorer and we're going to explore the platforms folder here. And for Android, we did this through an assemblyinfo.cs. So this kind of like a .NET framework kind of thing. You can just create that file and it will be included. And here we can register with these kinds of attributes on the assembly level: users permission, Android manifest permission, access course location, access file location. You can also do users feature that will, I think, make clear in the App Store that this uses your location features or your GPS or network. And it, if you set the require to true, I think devices that do not have a GPS sensor will automatically be excluded from the download. So people who do not have a GPS chip will not be able to download your application. There's a lot of docs on this. Go check it out in the links below. But you will have to list all these permissions so that people know what is going on, right? What you're going to do with this. So you can declare it like this. What you can also do is go to your Solution Explorer and go to the Android manifest.xml, which is kind of like the really platform native way of specifying the manifest for Android. And you can here see actually this user's permission here as well. You can duplicate this with all the permissions that you just saw. If you're watching this sometime in the future, I hope that we have the graphical interface back for this in Visual Studio. We have a graphical interface that lists all the permissions, and you just need to check the right ones and they will be added for you. So that's definitely a possibility as well. But be aware of these permissions whenever you want to go out to the store. If you tick a wrong permission that you're not even using, the user might be like, I don't know if you need access to my contacts or to my, I don't know, GPS sensor. That seems weird for an app that, typically doesn't use that. So if you have permissions in there, it might be, double check those because it might prevent users from installing it. So make definitely sure that they're okay. Now, for the same thing, we also have this, of course, you need to do this for all the platforms that you want to support. So for iOS, we have this info plist. This is, well, we actually have the graphical interface here, but I'm not sure if the permissions are already in here. I don't think so. So here also we have a list with the permissions that you might be able to set up. But this is another kind of like XML file. So you can right click, open with, and we can just do the XML text editor. And here you can see you will have to add the right keys. In this case, we already set it up for you, so you don't need to worry about it. We have the NS location when in users description, and on iOS you can actually say like, hey, this is the reason why I want to use your location, so that the user knows like, okay, that makes sense. You need to find the monkey, so that is something that I can trust. So you set that up in the info plist like this. The same kind of like for macOS, that's kind of like the same concept, also an info.plist. And for Windows, you need to do it through the package app manifest, and I think we have the graphical editor for this one as well. And you can see here, I think you need to do it through the capabilities, which it doesn't really list right here right now. So definitely go check out the documentation, but it's set up, maybe, it should be set up for Windows here as well in the source. So definitely just go check that out. It's a good note. But also like for the APIs, like for the geolocation, that's also good to know. If you are going to do the geolocation, it will automatically check for you. It has some things built in to check for you if the permission is granted, yes or no. And else it will pop a little dialog to ask the user. Again, I keep calling it the Essentials APIs. You also have permissions where you can actually check like, hey, did I declare this permission in the manifest? Did the user deny or accept the things? What is kind of like the granularity for the location services that I have? So a lot to cover there, which I'm not going to do right now, but it's definitely good to know that it's there. So with this, actually, it's time, I think, to just run this. We're going to run this on the Android simulator, and we're going to see if we actually have the button, and if we click it, what will happen. Now, while this is loading, I think I might have briefly mentioned it before. Here in the Android emulator, you have these three dots down here, which is really cool. You have all these possibilities, and you also have this location right here. So depending on what you set here, the kind of like results may vary. So let's get our monkeys. We need to do that first, else it's not going to do. And whenever I find closest, does it actually get me one? Oh, see, here's the permissions at work. Do we allow the access? Well, do while using the app, that's fine. and it's going to find the closest. Is it actually? Do I need to click it again? Oh, Henry Phoenix. So that's the closest one. And probably my location is set to, I don't know, somewhere around there. But if I set it to Amsterdam, which is closer to where I am, so let's do that. And do I actually, oh, set location, here we are. And if I do it now, it still says Henry Phoenix. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. Looking at this, it's all in America, Asia, Japan. So if I just set this to, I don't know, Japan, you can do this pretty globally, set location. I'm expecting it to do the, well, it still does Henry Phoenix. So there might be a little bug here, or I'm not using this location thing correctly. Maybe that's what's going on, but it should give you the different results. Maybe you spot the bug. Please let me know down in the comments. But typically this functionality definitely works like this. So that is really, really cool. And with this, like extra debug tools, you can also simulate routes. So if you do that actual turn-by-turn navigation, then you can definitely do that as well. So now back to the other thing, which was the map, if you remember, that we also added to our MAUI program right here, our iMap, which is an API that allows you to open the default Maps application on your device. So let's see how to do that. We're actually going to do that in our details. So let me close all of this, and I'm going to go to the view model for the details first. And I'm going to add this map here, which is a map. And let's add that to the dependency injection automatically. Visual Studio knows what's up. So let me just press the tab button and boom, we have a map being dependency injected. And let me just paste in some code here to actually, trigger our map functionality. So I'm going to do that here. And again, we see this I command. So we're going to create this command here, which does the open map. And here we kind of see the same pattern, right? That's for a lot of the Essentials APIs. Try catch in case something goes wrong. Await map open async. So we're going to talk to this map API, and apparently it has an open async API to open the application. We have to specify a location. So the monkey.latitude, monkey.longitude, because we're in the details, right? So we have that data through our property already here. And then we have the map launch option. So again, you can specify a couple of arguments, just like with the geolocation. But in this case, we can set the name, which will have like the name, I think, in the Maps application. And you can set the navigation mode to navigation mode none, but you can also do driving or with transit or bicycling or all that kind of stuff. So it will automatically open with some kind of navigation mode, right? So that is pretty cool as well. And for the exception, same old, just do a debug write line and pop a little alert to the user. So we have this functionality in place. Now actually we have a button to do that. So add a button to actually trigger this functionality. So let's go over to our details. I think I have that right here. And then we have this, put it like, let's just put it on top here, right? So we have this vertical stack layout. We're going to add this button. And here again, no surprise, we have this command that we're going to trigger. We're going to center it horizontally, set it to a certain width, and we're going to do something with the styles that we're still going to see in another part. So let's run this actually again on the Android thing. And maybe it's also a nice exercise to run it on Windows, although I don't know if that has a special Maps application, yes or no. But here we're running it on Android, and then whenever we get the monkeys, we will get the list. We can click through to the details, and whenever we do that, we should see a new button that will now open the Maps application and show us where this monkey actually lives. Well, we see the button, so that's great. And whenever we click it, we will go to the Maps application, Google Maps in this case for Android. For iOS, it would be Apple Maps, and for Windows, we'll about to find out what's going on. I'm going to say skip, and hopefully, because this is the emulator, right? So this is kind of like a new device that's coming out of the box. Well, it does it pretty nicely. You can see it gets the coordinates. It's going to load the map. It already added a pin. It doesn't really show me yet the map. Maybe it has some trouble loading for some reason. But on your local machine, it's probably going to be much better. Now, you remember that I specified the name. I think it's kind of like dependent on the platforms that you're running on, what of the details of the map open options it's going to actually show. But typically, it should look nice on the platform that you're running on. So let's stop this one. Let's get a little bit off script here, and we're going to see on Windows what it's going to do. I did prepare this, so let's hope for the best, and else, well, you're going to see me fail on this little course right here. But just to show you that this, again, without changes, I just flip it to Windows. I'm going to run it here, and I'm going to see what it does with opening the maps. I don't think I really have the location settings set up for this device, so I'm not going to attempt that, but we are going to see what it does for the map APIs. Now, I'm told you in an earlier video, I'm not going to really show you for the iOS part in this case. It definitely totally works for there as well. Actually, I have a little note about that whenever we're done with this little experiment, but you will have to figure that out for yourself. So let's make this a little bit smaller, get the monkeys, and let's do another one this time, the blue monkey, show on map. What's going to happen? Oh, there is a maps application on Windows as well. That's pretty cool. So it's going to open that, let it access my precise location. Yeah, why not? And we can here see that name, the blue monkey. So for this platform, it definitely is implemented. For some reason, it also doesn't load the map for this application. So I'm now starting to wonder if my firewall is blocking maps services right here. I'm not sure what's going on. But this looks pretty nice, and you can do the directions here and everything that comes together with the maps application that is on your platform. So that is how we can use the platform functionality on your platform. Now, there is a lot more APIs that you can use here. I put it up on the screen earlier in this video, or in an earlier video. There is a lot of APIs, so go check that out. Basically, I think all the APIs that you would use for a fairly basic app, you can definitely find them inside of the Essentials package, and you can use those, and you have the abstractions, and you don't need to worry about any platform-specific code to access all of that powerful functionality. So that's really great. So I promised you to get back to a little bit of an iOS thing. So if you are familiar with iOS devices, then the newer devices now have this notch, right? Which kind of like is an interesting thing for your screen designs, because by default, it will draw behind the notch. So, if you're placing things really against it or maybe behind it, then the user can't reach it. And the iOS has the APIs available to influence that behavior. It's called like the save area layouts. But this is something very specific to iOS, right? So on iOS, so another way to solve it is kind of like add a margin or padding at the top or at the bottom. But then you would have to do that specifically for iOS. So for iOS, you can definitely also specify the platform-specific APIs. We have ways in .NET MAUI for doing those kinds of platform-specific things. You should find it in the README for this repository, for this folder, for this part. There is a little exercise for the iOS things in there. I think, unless you're running on iOS and you can try this, for now, just take this in as a little bit of knowledge that you might want to use whenever you're actually going to build an iOS app. But it's definitely a nice exercise for you to try that as well. For the next part of this course, we're going to dive deeper into the collection view, so the list of monkeys. We're going to add pull to refresh. We're going to see different layouts. We're going to add a little nice graphic whenever the collection is empty, so that the user actually knows it's empty. Actually, I'm going to stop talking about it, and here you can find the next part of the collection view, and here you can find the full playlist for this course. See you for the next part.